with my next question, and this is why I sort of laughed a little bit about you saying that people abusing it. We recently had Aussie Broadband cancel a subscription of a person who was abusing their unlimited data. You know what? I'm gonna ask. What do you think? What do you think of that? The person was obviously testing their limits, but was it right for them? Because to me, it seemed like free publicity.
Well, I can probably. I don't think the person concerned would mind letting everybody know that they're actually on our network now.
There you go. Well done. Well done.
So, look, I know Phil. I wouldn't say I know him well, but he's a good bloke. But I do think that whole incident was very badly handled by Aussie Broadband. I think we've had heavy users on our network in the past, and we've always called them up and said, "What's going on?" Or no, more, "Did you know?" That's usually our first question, because we've had a few people who they didn't know that some programmer got loose, and we then sort of either help them or help them to move to a better time of day where we get a bit more bandwidth. We essentially negotiate with them. And while we have had people very early on, and this is mainly in Tasmania where we're much more restricted on bandwidth,
right?
Where we have had to send them off to other providers. It's never been a sort of quick letter or a text. I can't remember how Aussie Broadband did it with this
It was an email.
Yeah, that's right. It was pretty sort of impersonal, and I just think a phone call and hey, look, what's going on? Because I actually think, but I know because I talked to her and I asked, sort of, what do you think about what happened? And she said, well, I was being an idiot. I shouldn't have done it, and I apologize, and I said, well, yeah, that's probably right. And if Aussie Broadband had done that, she would have stopped, and that would have been the end of it.
Sure.
But instead, they made this big media circus out of the whole thing. And I just thought, you guys, it's an odd thing for them to do, and I don't think it helped them. I don't think it was really a great move on their part. But hey, it happens.
Yeah. And on that note, obviously, there's been a couple of things happening with Aussie Broadband. One of them is them going to IPO in October, floating on a stock exchange. But also, one thing I sort of put two and two together is also them rising prices just before they do. But my question to you is, what do you think of an RSP? And obviously, there's TPG, who are on the ASX and are a very large provider. But for a smaller RSP like Aussie Broadband, who only have, I believe, 250,000 subscribers, or what you'd call actual customers, them floating on the ASX. What are your thoughts?
Look, you got to remember that floating a company on an ASX is just a method of raising money. Right? So, in the case of Aussie Broadband, Phil Britt made the decision some years ago because he was fed up, I think, with Optus. I can't remember what he was. He was using an aggregate provider, and I know exactly what he's talking about because we use Vocus, and we have issues with them, and it's actually one of the reasons we're going down much the same path.
Sure.
But he decided he wanted to connect directly to all the NBN POI. And so he knew he didn't personally have the money, and the company didn't have the money, so he went out to find a whole bunch of investors.
Right.
And the typical track of a company like that, where you get a whole bunch of investors in, is you do whatever it is you're investing in, you grow the company, you improve the profitability, and then you take the company to the ASX and you float it. That's the term. And then anybody who wants to take their money back out, and these investors probably would have either doubled or tripled, quadrupled their money, essentially can sell their shares. Obviously, some do and some don't.
Sure.
I get the impression not many will in this particular occasion, because my understanding is that the shares that are being floated onto the ASX are newly issued. So they're issuing new shares.
Right.
They've sold some to their existing customers. I think they put $10,000 worth, and they're putting another bunch onto the stock market itself. And then, as I say, all the investors will probably sit there and they'll hope that the price will go up, and maybe in 6 months' time they'll start selling out, and that's the way investors make money. So it's not a bad thing
Sure.
that they do this, or a good thing. It's just a method of running a business, and that's all that is.
And so the capital there that they raise will be used to connect their own POIs, and basically have their own fiber or dark fiber.
Well, they're not. Well, they're raising a bit of money, but they're not really raising money so much as paying back the investors that
Right.
originally invested.
Right. Okay. Makes sense. And what do you think this means for the future of the company? Forget the, oh, let's say, they've already paid the investors off, they've done that part. What do you think? And obviously, I'm not sure if you're a financial expert in regards to the stock market, but.
Sure. Look, I mean, what will happen is that the price will will go up or down according to the fortunes of the company and according to the how much profit they make. They've already said they're not going to be doing a dividend for a while, and that probably makes sense given they're not actually making a profit.
Sure.
So really, people who buy the shares are looking for a capital growth, and hoping that the company will grow in terms of its value over time. What will it do to the company itself? That's very much an open question. It's some companies they become very sort of share price focused. They become more about making money and less about what made them great in the first place. But not all, and some work very well. There have been some companies that do well for a while, and then the share price starts to drop, and another telco might come up and decide to come and buy up all the shares. I mean, that's essentially the sort of what's happening between Unity Group and Opticom.
Sure.
Opticom's been a publicly floated company. I don't know how long it has been, but for quite a while. And Unity are coming along and offering a certain number of price per share, and I think they have to get 75%. I can't remember what the rules are, and then boom, it's all sold.
Wow.
And then they're effectively taken off the share market. So it's the reverse of a float.
Yeah, privatizing again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And you see that, and that may well happen to Aussie Broadband. I think depending on who buys them out, if that happened, who bought them out. If it's another telco, then you can obviously expect that other telco's culture to to do it. Much like TPG was the classic example with their buying out of Irenet and Internode. Irenet bought Internode first, and then TPG, and there's no question that fundamentally changed both Internode and Irenet, and they're really just there in name now.
That's right.
Long gone.
Yeah, I started off on Irenet as my first provider due to the positive sort of customer experience from other people. So it's just so interesting to see an NBN, a company that's dependent on the NBN to float on the market. Do you think that the actual way the business works in regards to the NBN being a provider of the infrastructure, and they're technically being quite a saturated market, because once you're connected, and I'm not sure how often people change or churn, as you might say, across to other providers. Do you think it's going to be a very hard growth to try and steal from these other bigger players in the market for Aussie Broadband?
Look, that's a very good question, actually, because they're not actually that big. They're 250,000 customers or thereabouts. That's a very small percentage of the entire market. I can't do the mathematics on my head.
It's like 2% or something.
Yeah, that's right. It's tiny. When you think that Telstra, Optus, and TPG between them, I think all have like 85-90% of the market.
That's right.
So there's a lot of scope for taking customers off those big providers. Having said that, Aussie Broadband are definitely focusing on the premium end of the market, and whether how much they can expand more into that space without having to drop their margins even further. And just to contrast Lontel with Aussie Broadband, I mean, we are, I think, 1/50th the size of Aussie Broadband, just to put that in perspective. So we are tiny compared to even Aussie Broadband. So you can imagine how small we are compared to
Sure.
TPG. We're not going after a very large customer base. We are going to get to a certain size, and then we're going to pretty much cap our growth. We're probably about 3 or 4 times our current size. Is what we're looking to do.
Sure.
But the thing that allows us to do is to keep our margins up, because we can provide the service we want to provide, and charge enough money to make sure that we make a healthy profit and we're a healthy company.
Absolutely.
When with Aussie Broadband, what they're doing is as they get bigger and bigger, they're having to sort of go down the premium scale in order to get more customers. And of course, every time you do that, you're losing a bit more margin and in a bit more competition. So yeah, again, open question. I think there's definitely a lot of customers out there that are interested in moving. But how big that, how much Aussie Broadband can expand now is unclear. But I wouldn't surprise me if they could at least double in size.
Okay. Wow, that's cool. I mean, that's really good for them and good for those folks who do buy into the shares. Any final thoughts, Damian?
On Aussie Broadband, look, I wish them the best of luck. Aussie Broadband very much have the same sort of way of going out business as we do. I know Phil Britt. I've met him several times, and he's a good bloke. He's an engineer like myself, so he's fundamentally driven by those sort of engineering principles. I wish him the best of luck, and I hope it all goes well. I'm sure we will find each other in the marketplace down the track.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to speak with me today. I really appreciate it. All the best with Lontel, and I hope you have a good week working from home.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right.